So Iran's foreign minister firing back at the U.S. after the Trump administration reimposed these sanctions. The president calling on other countries not to buy Iranian oil, but our next guest is giving the president a lot of credit for these tough new actions. We're joined today by former Connecticut Senator and Chairman for United Against Nuclear Iran, Joe Lieberman. It's good to see you again, sir.
You too, Bill.
How's life on the other side?
Life is good. You know, I loved my 24 years in the Senate, although it got kind of frustrating at the end. It was hard to get anything done, but this is a great chapter, too.
Well, you look good.
Feel good,
I think he looks better, actually.
It looks good.
You know, once
Less
you get outside the
stress.
swamp, right?
And it's great to have you in studio this morning. And you have seen this president moving forward firmly on Iran. First of all, how do you look on at the president's policy here?
Well, I totally agree with it, and I'm very grateful for it. I mean, as Bill said, I'm here as chair of a group called United Against Nuclear Iran, a bipartisan group focused really on trying to convince businesses as Congress, including led by people like me and Republicans and Democrats, adopted sanctions, economic pressure on Iran. UANI, United Against Nuclear Iran, put pressure on businesses to stay out of Iran, saying it was risky business and it was wrong to deal with this extremist regime. At the negotiations, the so-called P5+1, including the Obama administration, I think gave away all that pressure for a very inadequate agreement, temporary pause in nuclear weapons development, nothing about limiting missile development or any of the other bad behavior of Iran. And, you know, it looked like we were going to have to figure out how to live with it, but then President Trump comes along and does exactly what he said he would do during the campaign. It's a whole new world.
So he reimposed these sanctions the other night, midnight.
Yeah.
They took effect Tuesday.
Right.
And now he says more are coming in November. Will they work?
I think they're going to help because I think particularly they're coming at a time when there's more instability in Iran than there's been for a long, long time, probably since the protests after the fraudulent elections in June of 2009. What I mean is the economy is tanking. The rial, the currency of Iran, has lost 80% of its value in the last year. Unemployment is sky high. Almost every day, somewhere in Iran, there's a protest to the government. And it's mostly about the economy, about corruption in the government, about extremism in the government. And some of it, interestingly, is we don't want to be in Lebanon. We don't want to be in Gaza. We want our money to be spent here in Iran on
That's
us.
what the Iranians are saying.
That's what the Iranian people are saying. So these sanctions from President Trump, the administration will squeeze the Iranians more, and I think maybe force the government to come back and negotiate a better nuclear agreement, or may lead to a new Iranian revolution.
Let me touch on that, because we really don't know what's behind door number two.
Right.
Just a couple business matters here. Here's the latest tweet from the president on this. On screen, he says the Iran sanctions have officially been cast, he writes. These are the most biting sanctions ever imposed. And in November, they ratchet up to yet another level. That's when the oil sanctions kick in on November 5th. Anyone doing business with Iran will not be doing business with the United States. That's a direct message to the Europeans. I'm asking for world peace, nothing less. In contrast, Nancy Pelosi came out and basically slammed this agreement. Here's what she said. This counterproductive action only diminishes America's international credibility, erodes our relationships with our NATO and EU allies, and sets back the path toward a more stable region and peaceful non-nuclear future. Now, you just said something. You believe this could lead to a second revolution in Iran.
I do.
What is that revolution? What is that leadership? What is that country without the mullahs in charge?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be chaotic, and I'm afraid these mullahs are capable of behaving just like Assad has in Syria. If their people rise up, they'll turn their guns on their own people. But maybe not. And what I see is a country where the majority of people are really fed up with the government. And there's every reason for them to be fed up. No freedom, but really no economic opportunity. A lot of corruption at the top of the government. And I think these sanctions, you know, businesses, the European governments are clinging to this Iran nuclear agreement. Their businesses are not, because the direct challenge that President Trump issued is exactly what they're thinking about in the boardrooms in Europe, which is, do you want to do, the EU has something like $16 billion of annual trade back and forth with Iran. The EU has well over $1 trillion of trade back and forth
You
with the
make
U.S.
this selection. We're going to go to North Korea in a moment here, but
Yeah.
yes or no, when John Bolton comes on TV and says we're not interested in regime change, are they of a different name, however, interested in changing that regime?
Well, I hope so. I mean, this has to start from the people of Iran up, but we have to try to, if that happens, I think it's in our interest to help them. But listen, the government has an opportunity to negotiate reasonably, and I think the only way this group of extremists will really negotiate to end their nuclear program and stop all the other bad behavior is if they think it's the only choice they have to keep their regime in power. And they may be coming close to that moment because of the pressure economically.
When you talk about our European allies, though, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, making it very clear in this tweet today, saying the regime in Iran is at odds with world peace. We urge our allies and partners to join the U.S. and deny Iran's leadership the funds to oppress the Iranian people and to foment terrorism around the world. That being said, last night the president had this meeting with business leaders at his golf club in Bedminster. When speaking, he seemed to be taking a bit of a victory lap when it comes to his policies on North Korea in that meeting in Singapore with Kim Jong-un. Watch this.
Someone just said, well, wait a minute, why isn't it moving fast? They've been working on this thing for 40 years. I left 3 months ago. We got our hostages back. There's no more missiles flying over Japan. There's no rockets going up. There's no nuclear testing.
And it's sort of difficult to hear him, but he was joking about how things are moving so fast with North Korea. We've got our hostages back. There's no more missiles flying over Japan. There's no more rockets going up. There's no nuclear testing. Is this president making more progress on North Korea?
Well, he's making more progress than his last couple of predecessors have, but not as much as there's not as much change in behavior by the North Koreans as we need. Yeah, they sent back those prisoners. We appreciate that. They haven't shot missiles over Japan or South Korea. But as you know, and John Bolton has validated this in recent days, our intelligence community is very clear that there's continued activity at the North Korean nuclear and missile development site. So they really haven't stopped their program. There's a lot more that they've got to do. So it's too early to take a victory lap. We've made some progress, but the North Koreans have played previous American presidents of both parties, getting money from us, saying that they would change their behavior, taking the money, and then not changing their behavior. And President Trump obviously has to watch out for that.
I hope you come back. Will you?
I will.
We got midterms to talk about, all kinds of stuff.
I'd enjoy that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Have a good day.
With us
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you.